It's October 1975, and I'm writing this down because I need to tell someone the truth, even if it's just these pages. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I'm 19 years old, and I'm 6 months pregnant. Nobody in my family knows. Not my parents, not my 3 sisters, not even my best friend Maria, who tells me everything. I've been hiding this pregnancy since I first suspected it back in April, and every day that passes makes the secret heavier to carry. But I have my reasons for keeping quiet, reasons that most people wouldn't understand unless they knew what my family is like and what would happen to me if they found out. I'm sitting here at my small desk in the boarding house room I've been renting since I started working at the telephone company 6 months ago. My parents think I moved out because I wanted independence and to be closer to my job downtown. They don't know the real reason was to hide the changes in my body, the morning sickness, the doctor's appointments, and all the planning I've been doing for when this baby arrives in January. The father is David Thompson, and that's probably the biggest reason I can't tell my family about this pregnancy. David is Black, and I am Mexican American. And in my family's world, in my neighborhood, in our church, in the community where I grew up, that kind of relationship is absolutely forbidden. Not just disapproved of, but completely unacceptable in ways that would bring shame on our entire family and probably result in me being disowned permanently. I met David at the community college where we were both taking evening classes. I was studying to become a secretary, trying to improve my typing and shorthand so I could get better jobs than just working in factories or cleaning houses like most of the women in my family. David was taking business courses while working days as a mechanic, trying to save money to eventually start his own auto repair shop. We were both serious students, both working hard to build better futures for ourselves, both dreaming of lives that would be different from what our parents had achieved. The attraction between us started as study partnership and friendship, then slowly developed into something deeper and more romantic than either of us had planned. We would meet at the library to work on assignments together, then gradually started having coffee afterward, then began taking long walks around campus talking about our hopes and plans for the future. David was the most intelligent, ambitious, and kind man I had ever known, and I could tell he cared about me in ways that were genuine and respectful. "Rebecca, I know this is complicated because of our different backgrounds," David said the first time he kissed me, back in February of this year. "But I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. If you're willing to deal with the challenges this might create, I'd like to see where this relationship could go." I knew he was right about the complications, but I was already falling in love with him and willing to figure out how to handle whatever problems came up. Our relationship developed in secret, with careful planning about when and where we could spend time together without being seen by anyone who might report back to our families or communities. We would meet at libraries and coffee shops in parts of town where neither of us was likely to encounter people we knew. David would pick me up for dates several blocks away from my parents' house, and I would tell my family I was studying late or working overtime, or visiting friends they didn't know well enough to check up on. The secrecy was both exciting and exhausting. On one hand, having a private relationship that belonged only to us felt romantic and special. On the other hand, not being able to introduce David to my family or friends, not being able to go to neighborhood restaurants or community events together, and constantly worrying about being discovered, made the relationship feel fragile and temporary, like something that couldn't possibly last in the real world. When I realized I was pregnant in April, my first emotion was terror. Not about having a baby, but about what would happen when my family found out that I was carrying a Black man's child. The shame and anger they would feel, the things they would say about me and about David, the way this would affect my sister's reputations and marriage prospects, the possibility that my father might become violent, or my mother might never speak to me again. All of these fears made it impossible to even consider telling them the truth. David's reaction when I told him about the pregnancy was everything I could have hoped for from someone I loved. He was surprised and scared, like any young man would be. But he was also immediately supportive and committed to figuring out how we could handle this together. "Rebecca, I love you, and I want to marry you and raise this baby with you," he said, when I finally found the courage to share the news. I know it's going to be difficult with both our families, but we can make this work if we're willing to be brave and stand up for what we believe is right. But being brave and standing up for our beliefs felt impossible when I thought about the concrete realities of what that would mean. My father, Manuel Martinez, is a proud man who has very strong opinions about family honor and proper behavior for young women. He came to this country from Mexico as a young man and worked incredibly hard to establish our family in this community, to earn respect and acceptance that he felt could be lost if his daughters brought shame on the family name. Before you continue this powerful story of love, courage, and difficult choices with us, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales about the women who faced impossible situations with strength and determination, finding their own paths, even when it meant defying family expectations. My mother, Rosa, is equally traditional in her beliefs about relationships and marriage. She has spent my entire life preparing me and my sisters for what she considers appropriate marriages to nice Mexican or Mexican-American men from good families in our community. The idea that I would choose to be with a black man, much less have a child with him, would violate everything she believes about family loyalty and cultural preservation. The decision to move out of my parents' house and rent this small room was presented as wanting independence, but it was really about creating the space I needed to manage this pregnancy without constant family scrutiny. Living on my own for the first time has been both frightening and liberating. I've had to learn to cook for myself, manage a budget, do my own laundry, and handle all the adult responsibilities that I was sheltered from while living at home. The job at the telephone company has been a blessing in ways my family doesn't realize. Not only does it provide the income I need to support myself and prepare for the baby, but the work environment is more diverse than anywhere I'd been before. There are women of different races and backgrounds, including several who are married to men outside their ethnic communities. For the first time, I'm around people who don't automatically assume that interracial relationships are wrong or shameful. "Rebecca, you seem different lately," my supervisor, Mrs. Johnson, observed last week. "More mature, more focused. Whatever changes you're going through, they seem to be good for you." If only she knew that the changes she's noticing are partly due to pregnancy hormones, but mostly due to the way this situation has forced me to grow up quickly and make adult decisions about my life and my future. The loose-fitting clothes I've been wearing to work, and when I visit my family, have successfully hidden the physical changes so far. But I know that won't be possible much longer. At 6 months pregnant, I'm showing enough that careful observers would notice if they were looking closely. The bigger challenge will be explaining where I'm going for doctor's appointments and why I'm tired more often than usual. Dr. Patricia Williams, the physician I found through a referral from Planned Parenthood, has been providing my prenatal care in a clinic that serves women from all backgrounds, without judgment about personal circumstances. She knows about my situation with my family and has been supportive while also helping me understand the health considerations for both me and the baby. "Rebecca, your pregnancy is progressing normally, and there's no medical reason why you and your baby shouldn't be perfectly healthy," she told me during my last appointment. "But I am concerned about the stress you're carrying from keeping this secret. Have you thought about what you'll do when the baby is born? That's the question that keeps me awake at night. I can hide being pregnant for maybe another month or two, but I can't hide having a baby. At some point, I'm going to have to make decisions about whether to tell my family the truth, whether to try to raise this child as a single mother, whether David and I should get married despite knowing that both our families will probably reject us, or whether there are other options I haven't fully considered yet. David and I have been talking about getting married and moving to a different city where we could start fresh without the pressure and judgment from our families and communities. He's been saving money and looking into job opportunities in places like Los Angeles or San Francisco, cities that might be more accepting of interracial couples and mixed-race children. We could build a life together away from all this drama, he suggested during one of our recent conversations. Our families might come around eventually, but even if they don't, we could create our own family and our own community. The physical challenges of hiding this pregnancy have become increasingly difficult as I've entered the second trimester. The morning sickness that helped convince my family I was just adjusting to living on my own has mostly passed, but now I'm dealing with fatigue, back pain, and the constant awareness of this growing life inside me that I can't share with the people who are supposed to be my closest support system. The emotional challenges are even harder than the physical ones. Every time I visit my parents' house for Sunday dinner, every time one of my sisters calls to chat about her boyfriend or her job or her plans for the future, every time my mother asks me if I'm eating enough or getting enough rest, I feel the weight of this enormous secret that's separating me from my family in ways they don't understand. "Mija, you look different lately," my mother said to me just last Sunday as we were cleaning up after dinner. "Rounder in the face? Maybe putting on some weight? Are you eating too much of that American food now that you're living alone?" I managed to laugh and make jokes about learning to cook for myself, but inside I was panicking about how much longer I could deflect these kinds of observations. My sister Carmen, who is closest to me in age and has always been my confidant about everything, has been asking more direct questions about why I seem distant lately and whether I'm hiding something from the family. "Rebecca, you used to tell me about every boy you talked to, every date you went on, every dream you had about your future," she said during our last conversation. "Now you act like you have this whole secret life that we're not allowed to know about. What's really going on with you?" The temptation to confide in Carmen is strong because I know she loves me and would try to be supportive. But I also know that keeping this kind of secret from our parents would put her in an impossible position. If she knew about David and the pregnancy and didn't tell them, she would be betraying their trust. If she did tell them, she would be betraying mine. It's better for everyone if she doesn't have to make that choice. The appointments with Dr. Williams have been my only opportunity to talk openly about the pregnancy and get the medical care and emotional support I need. She's been wonderful about working around my schedule and helping me understand what to expect during the remaining months of pregnancy and during delivery. "Rebecca, you're handling this situation with remarkable maturity," she told me during my most recent visit. "But I want you to think seriously about building a support network for when the baby comes. Single motherhood is challenging under any circumstances, but doing it completely alone while hiding from your family will be nearly impossible." Her advice makes sense, but building that support network feels complicated when most of my friendships are connected to my family or my old neighborhood in ways that would make maintaining secrecy difficult. The women I work with at the telephone company have been friendly and helpful, but we're not close enough yet for me to share something this personal and potentially controversial. David has been my primary source of emotional support throughout this pregnancy, and our relationship has deepened in ways that have convinced me we could build a strong marriage and family together if we're willing to face the challenges that would involve. He's been researching everything he can find about pregnancy and childbirth, coming with me to doctor's appointments when possible, and making concrete plans for how we could support a family financially. "Rebecca, I've been thinking that maybe we should get married now, before the baby comes, even if we have to keep it secret for a while," David suggested during one of our recent conversations. "That way we'll be a legal family when our child is born, and it might make some of the practical issues easier to handle." The idea is appealing in many ways, but it would also mean adding marriage to the list of things I'm hiding from my family, which feels like it would make the eventual revelation even more explosive. The financial planning for this baby has required me to become much more careful about budgeting and saving than I've ever had to be before. The medical expenses, even with the sliding scale fees at the clinic, are stretching my telephone company salary. I've had to give up small luxuries like eating out occasionally or buying new clothes, and I've been shopping at thrift stores for the maternity clothes I wear when I'm not around family. Setting up a savings account for baby expenses has been both practical and emotional. Every time I deposit money that I've set aside for diapers, formula, or a crib, I feel more real about becoming a mother and more committed to making this work somehow. David has been contributing to this fund as well, treating our financial planning as a shared responsibility, even though we're not officially engaged or married yet. The nursery items I've been collecting have to be stored carefully in my small room where visiting family members won't see them. I have a small box under my bed with baby clothes, blankets, and bottles that I've been accumulating gradually. It feels strange to be preparing for motherhood in such a secretive way, but it's also made me more thoughtful about every purchase and more appreciative of each small step toward being ready for this baby. The reactions I imagine my family having when they eventually learn about David and the pregnancy range from disappointment and anger to complete rejection and disownment. My father might feel that I've disrespected his authority and our family's reputation in ways that can't be forgiven. My mother might worry about what people in our community will say, and how this will affect my sister's prospects for good marriages. But I've also been thinking about the possibility that their initial reactions might not be their permanent feelings, that people can change and grow and learn to accept situations they never thought they could handle. My grandmother, my mother's mother, surprised everyone in our family when she eventually accepted my aunt's marriage to an Italian man back in the 1950s, even though she initially said such a union was impossible and shameful. Sometimes families need time to adjust to changes they weren't expecting, David observed when I shared my hopes that my parents might eventually come around. The most important thing is that we're making decisions based on what we believe is right for us and our child, not on what we think will make other people happy. If they love you, they'll find a way to accept us eventually. The question of timing, when and how to tell my family about David and the pregnancy, has become more urgent as I've gotten further along. Originally, I thought I might be able to hide the pregnancy until after the baby was born, and then present them with a grandchild they couldn't help but love. But I'm realizing that keeping such a major secret until the very end might make them feel even more betrayed and deceived than if I told them sooner. On the other hand, telling them now would mean months of family drama, pressure to make decisions I'm not ready for, and possibly being cut off from their support during the final trimester, when I'll need help the most. The timing feels impossible no matter when I choose to have this conversation. The dreams I have about my future have been changing as the pregnancy progresses, and the reality of becoming a mother becomes more concrete. Instead of vague hopes about career advancement and eventual marriage, I'm now thinking specifically about what kind of life I want to build for this child, and what kind of parent I want to be. I want to be the kind of mother who teaches her children to be proud of all aspects of their heritage, who helps them understand that love between good people is always something to celebrate regardless of race or background, who shows them through example that it's possible to make difficult choices with courage and integrity, even when those choices involve sacrifice and uncertainty. It's now December 1975, and I'm 8 months pregnant. The secret I've been keeping for so long is about to become impossible to hide, and I know that the next few weeks will determine not just how my family reacts to this situation, but what kind of future David, this baby, and I will build together. I've been doing a lot of thinking about courage, about family loyalty, about love, and about what it means to make choices that honor your authentic self, even when those choices disappoint people you care about. Last week, I finally made the decision that I've been avoiding for months. I asked David to marry me. Not because I felt pressured or desperate, but because I realized that I want to build a life with him based on love and mutual respect, and that waiting for perfect circumstances or family approval might mean waiting forever. David, I know this isn't the traditional way to do things, I told him, but I love you, and I want us to be a real family when this baby comes. Will you marry me? His response was everything I could have hoped for. Rebecca, I've been wanting to ask you the same question for months, he said, taking my hands and looking directly into my eyes. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, and I can't wait to be your husband and this baby's father. Yes, absolutely yes. I want to marry you. We held each other and cried happy tears, and for the first time in months, I felt completely certain that I was making the right choices for my life. We were married 3 days ago in a simple civil ceremony at the courthouse, with 2 witnesses we barely knew and no family members present. It wasn't the wedding I had dreamed about as a little girl, but it was honest and meaningful in ways that a big traditional ceremony might not have been. When the judge pronounced us husband and wife, I felt a sense of peace and rightness that convinced me we were meant to be together regardless of what challenges we might face. The apartment we're moving into together next week is small, but cozy, in a neighborhood that's more diverse than where either of us grew up. Our neighbors include couples of different racial backgrounds, single mothers, elderly immigrants, and other people who are building non-traditional lives in ways that feel creative and hopeful rather than rebellious or shameful. For the first time, I feel like I'm living somewhere that I don't have to hide or explain who I am. The conversation with my family that I've been dreading for so long is scheduled for this Sunday. I called my mother yesterday and asked if I could come for dinner with something important to discuss with everyone. She sounded excited, probably thinking I was going to announce an engagement to some nice Mexican boy she didn't know I was dating. Instead, I'm going to tell them that I'm married to David, that we're expecting a baby in about 6 weeks, and that I hope they can find a way to accept and love us, even though this isn't what they expected for my life. "Are you ready for whatever their reaction might be?" David asked me as we rehearsed what I would say during this conversation. "I know you love them and want their approval, but you need to be prepared for the possibility that they might need time to adjust, or that they might not be able to accept us at all." He's right to prepare me for difficult reactions, but I've also been thinking about the strength I've discovered in myself over these past months and my ability to handle whatever challenges come up. The woman who is preparing to have this conversation with her family is not the same person who first discovered she was pregnant back in April. That woman was scared, dependent on family approval, unsure of her ability to make important life decisions independently. This woman has managed a pregnancy largely on her own, built a new life in a new neighborhood, married someone she loves despite knowing it would be controversial, and prepared to become a mother while maintaining her job and her independence. I've been thinking about what I want to say to my parents about why I made the choices I made, and how to help them understand that these decisions came from love, rather than from rebellion or disrespect for their values. "Mama, Papa, I know this isn't what you wanted for me," I plan to tell them. "But David is a good man who loves me and treats me well. Our baby will be your grandchild, someone who deserves to be welcomed into this family and loved for who they are, not judged for the circumstances of their birth." The nursery we're setting up in our new apartment represents everything hopeful and positive about the future we're building together. Instead of hiding baby items under my bed, I can now openly prepare for becoming a mother, shopping for a crib and decorating walls, and imagining this child growing up in a home where they're completely wanted and celebrated. David has been wonderful about helping with these preparations, assembling furniture and painting walls with the same care and attention he brings to everything else in his life. Dr. Williams says the baby is healthy and developing normally, and that I should expect to deliver sometime in mid-January. She's been encouraging about my ability to handle labor and delivery, especially now that I have David's support and don't have to manage everything alone. "Rebecca, you've shown remarkable strength and maturity throughout this pregnancy," she told me during my last appointment. "You're going to be a wonderful mother, and this baby is lucky to have parents who love each other and are committed to building a stable family. The job situation has worked out better than I expected, with my supervisor agreeing to let me take maternity leave and return to work part-time when I'm ready. Several of my colleagues have offered to help with babysitting and have shared advice about managing work and motherhood. The support system I was worried about not having has begun to develop naturally as I've been more open about my situation. The financial planning David and I have done together has convinced me that we can provide well for this baby, even if our families don't contribute the kind of support that grandparents typically offer. David's income from his mechanic job, combined with my part-time salary after maternity leave, will cover our basic expenses while we continue saving for the future. We're not wealthy, but we're responsible and committed to making this work. The name we've chosen for the baby reflects both of our cultural backgrounds and our hopes for their future. If it's a girl, we'll name her Elena Rosa. Elena for David's grandmother who raised him, and Rosa for my mother who I hope will eventually come to love her granddaughter, despite the complicated circumstances of her birth. If it's a boy, we'll name him Miguel David. Miguel for my grandfather who came to this country with nothing but dreams, and David for his father who taught him the importance of treating people with respect, regardless of their background. The letter I wrote to my family, which I plan to give them after our conversation on Sunday, tries to explain my choices in ways that emphasize love and commitment rather than rebellion or defiance. "I know you raised me to value family and tradition," I wrote, "and I want you to know that those values are part of why I chose to marry David and build a life with him. I believe that creating a loving family based on mutual respect and shared goals is the most important tradition of all, and that's exactly what we're doing." The hopes I have for my child's future include growing up in a world where interracial families are more accepted and where children aren't judged for their parents' choices, but also developing the strength and confidence to handle whatever challenges they might face. I want to raise someone who is proud of their Mexican and African American heritage, who understands that diversity is something to celebrate rather than hide, who knows that love between good people is always something beautiful, regardless of what other people might think. Looking back on these months of hiding my pregnancy, I understand now that the secrecy was necessary for me to develop the strength and clarity I needed to make good decisions about my future. If I had told my family immediately, their reactions and opinions might have prevented me from thinking clearly about what I actually wanted and what would be best for me and my baby. The time alone gave me space to grow up quickly and become the kind of person who could handle adult responsibilities and make difficult choices with confidence. The woman who hid her pregnancy for 6 months in 1975 discovered that she was capable of far more independence, strength, and wisdom than she had ever imagined. The reason I kept this secret wasn't shame about David or about becoming pregnant, but recognition that I needed time and space to become the person who could handle the challenges and responsibilities that came with these life changes. Tomorrow, when I tell my family about David and our baby, I'll be speaking as someone who has already proven to herself that she can make good decisions, handle difficult situations, and build a life based on love and authentic values rather than fear and other people's expectations. Whatever their reaction, I'll know that I've chosen my path thoughtfully and courageously, and that the family David and I are creating together is built on the strongest possible foundation of mutual love, respect, and commitment to each other and to our child's future.